Everyone, I'm Sharifa from Cornell University, and today I will present our paper Communicating Consequences, Visual Narratives, Abstraction and Polysemy in Rural Bangladesh. This work was done with Syed Ishtiaque Ahmed from the University of Toronto and Rzeszotarski from Cornell University. So little warning here, this paper and the presentation contain visually disturbing images. Abstraction and monosomy are the core attributes of modern visualization. However, subjectivity, situatedness, and polysemy are prevalent in local information visualization practices in many traditional communities. So polysemy is a way of semiotic design where visual elements are mapped with networks of possible meanings. Therefore, Western-centric, abstract, and geometry-based information visualization often fall short in connecting with people and conveying narratives and rhetorics. In our research, we ask, how can modern visualization practices be more useful to the communities with specific ideals, education, literacy, and ethics that differ from that of communication and visualization designers? In this paper, we investigate three research questions. First, how do rural visualization designers encode their cases and messages into visualization? How do they pick the elements and entities to associate with the meaning they want to convey? Second, how are subjectivity and situatedness inherred and communicated in rural visuals? How are the attributes chosen by the designers and related by the villagers? Third, how are visuospatial and temporal information like likelihood and uncertainty encoded and communicated in rural visuals? How do the designers play with abstraction and meaning mapping while their messages in the visuals remain accessible to the villagers? To address these research questions, we conducted a 10-month-long ethnographic study where we observed more than 100 people, conducted semi-structured interviews with 46 people, and conducted focus group discussions with 43 people. In these interviews and discussion session, we co-designed messages and visuals with the villagers. So our data was the transcript from the 12-hour-long audio recording from the interviews and focus group discussions, more than 200 pages of field note from the observations, and total number of 21 visuals that were drawn during the co-design sessions. 5 major themes occurred from the visuals that communicated task management, decision-making, and monetary management decisions. They are subjectivity, situatedness, factuality and iconography, frequency, sequence and patterns, and likelihood and uncertainty. First, subjectivity. Conventional digital visuals see subjectivity as a lack of truthfulness. In rural Bangladeshi visualization, subjectivity is seen as a sign of voice being heard. Rural Bangladeshi visual designers were aware that the audiences of their visual might receive multiple subjective perspectives, and they cautiously reverse engineered those possibilities in their visual encoding. For example, the image on the right shows the neighborhood scarcity of children's playground. Note two regular incidents here. The children leaving the household without protesting indicates that the women regularly kicks them out. The children sneak into mosque lawn and get kicked out from there as the grass is lighter or yellowish in the park. While discussing this image with another group, a participant who worked at the local mosque defended the mosque action and pointed to the men sitting on the back wall and smoking, and commanded, children should stay away from places where people can show the audacity to disrespect the religious rules and morals by smoking within the mosque territory. Maybe this is why he was kicking the children out, because he cannot kick those smokers out. So obviously children need better and safer playground. Thus, rural visual designers intentionally left scopes for the audience to have subjective takes, and audiences saw multiple facets of the problem and discussed numerous concerns and suggestions. Second, situatedness. Conventional digital visuals use physical proximity for explaining situatedness. On the other hand, rural Bangladeshi visual prefer situated knowledge over physical proximity for situated attributes. For example, in the image on the left shows the half moon and the horn speakers on the top of the building, which indicates it was a mosque. And the image on the right shows groom's pandal having flowers with birds and bride's pandal having kolka, indicating it is a wedding event. Factuality and iconography. Conventional digital visuals use factuality independent of time and visual attributes, while rural Bangladeshi visuals prefer exact entities and elements as representatives of factuality. For example, the images on the left is constructed based on a conventional digital visual grammar, and it shows a bar graph on death count from road accident in 2018. This image was collected from Rahman's work. The image on the right was drawn by rural visual designers, and it highlights 4 people who died from the road accident. So according to the participants, the representation of causality is more effective for people to take data more seriously than showing in graphs. Conventional digital visuals use geometric shapes representative of time, chronology, and frequency to construct narratives. Rural Bangladeshi visuals use familiar practice in constructing narratives. For example, the images here were constructed using rural Bangladeshi visual grammar. Rural visual designer considered women harassment on the street as a recurrent event in every woman's life with similar patterns and portrayed it as a Ludo board. In the image on the left, they imagined women's harassment event as a repetitive yet consistent time series data and encoded it using a closed loop circuit. In the image on the right shows the dynamics of Ludo board on which the designer built the visual. Finally, likelihood and uncertainty. The image on the left shows simplistic form of a decision tree that shows the likelihood of profit, while all end node pairs sum up to 100%. The image was collected from Edromac's work. On the other hand, rural visuals that resembles a decision tree and shows possibilities along with their perceived uncertainty and hope. Here in the image on the right, participants in a focus group discussion pointed to the park sign in Bengali and the mud road with tree on the top and discussed them as a sign of hope and possible social reform, while pointing to the road next to the college in the bottom and shared disappointment. So our work has several takeaways. We represent an understanding of how rural Bangladeshi communities construct rich narratives in their visual to convey day-to-day risk management and decision making and monetary management practice to their peers. We discussed how visual, spatial, and temporal information like likelihood and uncertainty are communicated in rural visuals by elements and their attributes with culturally situated meaning and existing material values. We pointed out that along with the careful use of polysemic symbols and abstractions for meaning making, cultural conventions of visual elements and their attributes were also crucial in constructing rural visual narratives. Our work has several great takeaways for information visualization research too. The findings of this work show that different data visualization standards and best practices, including encoding principle, design framework, and choice of color and shapes, many of which we consider to be understood universally, may not apply universally across culture and might fail to communicate with non-Western audiences. Therefore, we argue that designs that follow these standards may completely miss the mark because of a failure to incorporate local culture and context. Thank you, and here we accept questions.